Hello, and welcome to What's Your Story? I have a wonderful guest for you today. Her name is Sarah Lloyd. She is a PR alchemist, a storyteller, and a mother of two. So, welcome, Sarah. We're glad to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Judy. It's lovely to meet you. Be on the show
Thank,
again.
yeah, thank you. So, Sarah, tell us what a PR alchemist is.
Um, yeah, that's an interesting question. So I have worked in public relations for 25 years, and what I've realised over the last 5 or 6 years is it's not just about promoting yourself, it's about telling your story from a place of power. And what I've found with clients is they'll come in and have a session with me, and we are essentially alchemizing the stories that they have in their lives, that those stories become um opportunities to inspire, educate, and connect with people. So I just help them find the gold that they're already sitting on.
I see. Okay. Now you were in the Women Thrive group with me and spoke at the Women Thrive Summit recently. What was that experience like?
I found the experience to be hugely transformational in the fact that it was amazing to witness so many amazing female entrepreneurs in their power, listening and witnessing their stories. And, you know, you learn a lot from lots of women when you're sitting in circle with them or listening into what they're saying. So for me, it was a real experience of leveling up and just just being in people's energy that are just amazing. Like, I mean, like yourself, of course, like there's so many women that I learned from, and I hope to continue to stay in contact with a lot of those women as well, because we're all here to help each other and lift each other up. So I found it to be extremely transformational, and just I can just see how powerful groups like that are. So yeah.
I found it amazing myself. I've never been in a group of that many women who totally supported each other like they did. It was fabulous, fabulous, fabulous experience. What was your talk about? Your talk was about PR, right?
It was, yeah. It was about sharing your story from a place of power. So I talked about I call them sliding door moments, where when we look back over our lives, we'll see these moments in time where we would have gone, we could have gone left, but we went right. And we made these choices that sent us on a different path. And I talked a little bit about my own sliding door moments, and I talked about how I tried to teach people that were listening to kind of see the gold for themselves, but also share some tips on how to show up from a place of power and how to promote yourself. Because I mean, I say that PR. I know that you've worked in publishing as well, right? PR is just essentially when somebody else, in my mind, somebody else says that your product, service, solution is great. Um, it's great to get the media to do that too, but I feel like going back to the summit and the experience that we shared, we were all promoting each other, we were all supporting each other, and it's just such a unique space. There's not many spaces like that, or it's certainly in the past not been like that. And I feel like this is the way that things are going to evolve for women, which is really
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, I really find it amazing. I loved every bit of the experience, and I loved so many of the women. They were just powerful, and we were from all different generations. That was one of the things that really amazed me. And I was the oldest person in the whole group. I think Dr. Maria was next to me, and then. And then there were so many real young people, really young. And it was so cool to be able to have the kind of conversations we had and not think about the generational gap. Did you find that interesting or not?
100%, because I mean that's the thing. you know, there's I'm still learn I mean, I learn every day. I think we're full it would be foolish to assume we know everything. And I think that situation, it's like we're all learning from each other. I mean, I love sitting around with wise women that have, you know, have walked a few steps ahead of me or are coming up behind me, who have amazing fresh perspectives on things. So I think that's what's so amazing, is that, yeah, being open to that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I find it interesting. I was with some of my friends recently that are in my age bracket, and they were like, um, "I don't like millenniums. I don't like these younger people." And I was like, "Why do you not like them?" You know, well, they don't have any manners and they don't respect us and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I didn't find that true. You know, I find that if you show interest in other people, no matter what age they are, they seem to show interest back. This age gap thing, I think, is in people's minds.
100%. Says a lot more about other people, I think, than, yeah, it's so interesting because, I mean, I learned from my 10-year-old, you know, she's constantly putting me straight. So it's kind of I think
Yeah,
it's like that's one thing.
isn't it amazing what children say? I was with some friends at their home, and their little girl, I forget how old she was. She was like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe. I just forget her exact age, but she was being a bit of a brat, and her mom sent her upstairs to bed. And she came down the stairs a little bit later in the evening, and her mother said, "What are you doing down here?" She said, "I'm all alone up there. I don't like being all alone." And her mother said, "Well, you're not all alone. You know, God is with you." And she said, "Well, I wanted someone with skin on." That cracked me up. I wanted someone with skin on, you know, so I think, you know, I guess sometimes we do want somebody with skin on, you know, it kind of cracked
We
me up.
do.
Sometimes, yeah, children say the most amazing thing. We can learn from everybody, right? So
We
what's
can.
what's next for you? What are you doing now and next?
It's funny what, you know, that you asked that question, because the summit gave me real insight into other areas that I want to pursue, and I hadn't even realized that it was available to me. And so I mentioned that I'm a mum of two, and so I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I see every day children having huge anxiety going to school, not just my children but other children, because of obviously what's happened over the last few years. And I just saw, as I was listening to a lot of the talks and leaning into some of the women that I work with every day with regards to sharing their stories, there's this deep seated kind of fear that comes from something that was said to us when we were 10, 15, when we were kids, right? There's these stories, we carry them around with us until we kind of get the memo and we get rid of them. But what I realized is a lot of women were talking about their stories and their childhoods, and it's like, oh, okay, so we're helping women kind of transmute their stories and things that are holding them back now while they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s. But what about the kids that are sitting, you know, that are 8, 9, 10 now?
Mhm.
Is there a way to kind of shortcut the healing, if you like,
Yeah.
to kind of prevent maybe some of those things, some of those stories that we carry through into adulthood that stops us from doing stuff. I mean, I spent years thinking that I wasn't worthy because I I was a dancer, and it was all down to competition. And I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it was highly competitive. So I grew up with that kind of mentality, like you had to compete. And that's what's so amazing about the summit, is you're not in competition. You were, you know, we're all sitting alongside each other in complete in a beautiful circle. And that's the mindset shift that I've experienced, and I know I'm not alone in that, having spoken to clients. So what I wanted to try and do is like take the experience of the summit and then try and help these girls. And so I've actually been really fortunate, and I think it just kind of happened by a happy accident. I'm going to start running girls circles.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
kind of storytelling circles, so it can start to help them tell themselves positive stories or unravel anything that's coming up for them that might be holding them back in their 20s, 30s, 40s. I feel like it's almost like an opportunity to heal before they get stuck in those old, the records that some of us have, I guess. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just made me think of things differently. And there's some women on this in the summit who were running circles like that, and it was really amazing to have conversations with some of them and get the reassurance that I could do this. And again, like I'd held myself back from doing this kind of work for so long because I've always been in the PR space and that's what I've known. And I think it's being around women like that just gives you the courage to follow the path that perhaps you should be on.
Yes, yes. I love it. I teach art part-time at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. And I'm amazed at the number well, I do continuing education, so I get older students. I don't just get the
Amazing.
college age. I get the people who are 50, 60, 70 that, maybe now they're in a different space and they want to learn how to paint. And they come into class, but the amazing thing is how many of them say, in the first grade, my teacher threw my picture in the trash and I've never tried to paint again and I've always wanted to do it. Or my family made fun of my painting, or the teacher didn't put my picture up on the board because she said it wasn't good enough. And I hear these stories, and here they are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're still letting the first grade affect their life. They didn't pursue their dream or their goal of painting because someone way back then said they didn't have any talent or threw their paper away. And I just find that so hurtful. It's like what we need to do is teach people how to work with their children so they don't say those kinds of things that affect people their whole lives. Their
Yeah, it
whole
really
life.
does. And I've noticed it's always in relation to creativity. It's often I've stopped dancing, or I stopped writing, or I stopped painting, or stopped creating because I didn't feel good enough. And one thing that I was always told when I was younger was, oh, you can never make a career out of being a writer. So you kind of, you know, okay, I won't do that then.
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
stops you in your tracks.
It does. It does. I had one art teacher when I was first studying art, which wasn't really all that long ago, but we had a little boy in class. The boy had to be 10 or 12, and he painted everything in what I considered the wrong colors. Like he painted the sky green, and he painted the grass yellow, and he painted the trees purple, and whatever. And the art teacher loved it. The art teacher would put it up for critique time, and he would say, "I love your use of color. It's so wonderful how imaginative you are." And I would sit there thinking, the kid needs to learn what colors go where. But it was. I was so fascinated by this instructor that he was so open to whatever creativity you offered him. And he didn't affect that little boy's self-esteem in any negative way. I mean, all he did was go on and on about how great this kid's paintings were, and they were good. They were just, the colors were all in the wrong places, but were they really? It was his picture of the way the world was. And sometimes,
Oh,
I think we get too critical of other people. We see that their picture of the world is not the same as our picture. And so we get kind of, whenever anybody says to me, "Would you like a little constructive criticism?" I say, "No, thank you. Go give it to Sarah. She likes that." Because it's like, no, give it to somebody else. I don't want criticism in any form. And I don't believe criticism is constructive no matter what. I think you can give me an idea of how I can be better, or you can or you can maybe give me a little feedback, but don't give me some criticism. I don't really want it, you know. And I find that a lot of people are real big about, let me give you some constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Oh. Yes,
No,
I hear you
they,
on that one.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
those are my words of wisdom for the day. What are your words of wisdom?
I love that. But it's so true because the amount of times growing up, I would get critiqued and I'm
Hmm.
just critiquing. It's like, oh, please don't. Like, I really don't want to do it anymore now.
I know. And I don't think people understand the power of those words. Wow,
No.
I mean, just the thought that somebody's going to critique me is like, ooh. I had a sister that was an artist, and she would never put her artwork in any shows because she said, I don't want people's judgment about my artwork. And I didn't understand that until now that I'm an artist. Now I understand it. I want to say, just keep your opinion to yourself. Right? Well, I
Yeah.
got you
I
off
mean, it's
track.
amazing you're doing. I was going to say it's amazing you're doing art and teaching art and you're embracing that creative aspect of yourself as well. And that's just like amazing to be celebrated, isn't it?
It
So
is. It's wonderful. And the amazing thing is the number of people that come to me and they say, "Can you paint such and so?" And I think, "Well, I don't know. Let me try." And then I paint it and I show it to them and they go, "I'll buy that." And I'm like, "You will?" Okay. So I
I love
just think
that.
we have to encourage other people to have the confidence to make the effort. I think the confidence is such a problem with people today, or lack
Yeah,
of.
very much.
And I love what you're doing with these
Very
girls,
much.
because if you get these girls
Mm.
to telling their stories, and you can have someone there to help them summarize and look at the good parts and leave the bad parts behind, look what you're going to be doing for those girls. It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm really excited about it. I feel like it's a piece of work that is like we've been taking care of the older of our generations for a little while now, and I think a lot of us are moving through our healing, and we're being given the tools and techniques to reframe our own or retrain our own brains to think positively and mindset work and all of that amazing stuff. But if we could speak to the children, the younger generations, and teach them some positive skills, um, because I mean the things that I've heard that there are, serious issues with girls, and puberty seems to be starting younger. There's just so many shifts, and I feel like sometimes we don't keep up with them. So it's a
Yeah.
real, it's a real opportunity for me to learn as well. I mean, I'm keen to learn myself. So yeah,
Well, I think as a mother of two girls that are getting ready to go into their teens, um, you have to be ready to really help them, because those teenage years are very brutal sometimes.
yeah, very brutal indeed. And I think the world is very different when I grew up, in that we mobile phones weren't invented yet. We didn't have those sorts of we didn't have people taking photos of our every move, and um unfortunately that's what's happening in society at the moment, isn't it? I think there's this whole helping people learn that you can put the phone down and that you don't need to take a photo of your dinner, and you can and you don't need filters on everything that you're doing. But there is also the benefits to using social media and technology, because we wouldn't be sitting here now if we didn't have that. So there is positives to everything, and it's just, yeah, helping people to move through that in a way that empowers them rather than tells them don't do it, kind of thing.
I know. I know. I love it. I love the fact that you can be in London and I can be in Las Vegas and we can do a television show together. I mean, I think this is amazing. I couldn't have done this a few years ago, and it's just so fun to see the opportunities that have opened up and the people that I meet as a result of having this show and having the capability of doing it. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to
It
have
is.
people like you on my show as a guest because you bring a whole new perspective to the things that we talk about and the things we look at. And it's wonderful. I love it. I just love it.
Thank you.
So, who inspired you? Who helped you? Who got you through the tough times when you were a teenager and starting business?
Goodness, lots of people. I think that's kind of linking back to everything that we've said about the summit. It's always been groups of women that have moved me through tough times. And like my mum is great. But I think she also, what I've also realized is through my own kind of healing journey is, you know, she had tough times too. You know, it's like growing up in, I think that's the thing. It's like she did her best with what she had. And I think we're lucky in the situation where we can start to unravel some of the old stories that have been in existence in our family, in our timelines. So, you know, she suffered with postnatal depression, so did I. You know, those stories we told each other, and you know, she could see it in me, but until I admitted it to myself, it was very difficult for her to reach me. But then I also had a really inspiring female boss who asked me one day. I think I was working for her, and I was just stood there with a bunch of stuff kind of waiting for her to see me, and she just went, I said, so we've got all of this stuff. And she was like, well, what do you think? And I was like, that's the first time anybody's ever asked me that question. I don't know what I think. That's the problem. So I was so busy being told what to do and responding to, you know, what people told me how I should be and how, you know, how I should show up. And
Yeah,
it was that one question, like, what do you think? I don't know the answer to that.
I love that.
so
I'm
so
writing that
yeah.
down. That could be a good title for a book.
Yeah, it could. What do you think? Because I think so many women, if you ask that question to I mean, I feel disrespectful for men, but it is primarily women that kind of just look at you like you're mad. For like, well, I don't know what I think. What do you want me to think?
Well, when I grew up, women weren't taught to think. I hate to say that, but we really weren't. We weren't encouraged to think. As a generation, you know, my generation, you were just supposed to take a back seat to the man in your life and support him and make him everything he could be. And so, what do you think is an interesting question? Because you know, I never knew I had an opinion until I got old enough to go in business for myself, and then I had all kinds of opinions that nobody appreciated.
They're the
They're like,
best kind.
yeah, they're like, "Do you have to share that with us? We'd really rather you kept it to yourself." But I think some of us were held back for so long that when we get the opportunity to really become who we can be, we're just fascinated by it. And I
Yeah.
know now that I'm older and I look back, I can see why my mother did some of the things she did and why she said the things she did. And you know, now that I'm old, I'm starting to understand old people. You know, it's like, oh, is that why they did
You're
that?
not old. Oh no, I don't see you as old, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There are days when I feel really ancient, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not cool anymore. I used to be cool. I'm not so much anymore.
I was sitting here in the
But you,
television station with John before we came on the air, and I said something about this young girl. She's 33. I said something about how gorgeous she is, and I said I was never that gorgeous. And John goes, "I think you were. Yeah, you were." I'm like, "Wait, what about were? What about now?"
yes, the power of the words. Yes, I love that. Yeah, you know, and like you say, it's like now we see when I became a mum, I realised that's why my mum was the way she was, why she would disappear into her bedroom and lie down for 10 minutes. And there's me doing that. And I just need 10 minutes.
Just close the door and be quiet for a few minutes, right? Yeah. Yeah. So
Oh
I love
dear.
the fact that you consider yourself a storyteller because I've been a storyteller all my life, and I was very often told when I first started speaking, nobody wants to hear your stories, just stick with the facts. And I think it kind of ruined the beginning of my speaking career because people like stories, don't they? I think when I tell people about my paintings and I tell them the story behind how the painting got to be the way it is, they usually buy it. So it's like that story is important, isn't it?
It's so important. I think that's like you. I think I've always been a storyteller. I wrote a book a few years ago around my story as a PR person, and I started off. I didn't publish it through a traditional publisher. I started it with my own story. I remember it really vividly. I was 7, and my mum had given me some money to buy some cakes from the cake sale. And I decided to spend all the money on all the cakes. I had about 5 cakes. I gave 2 cakes to my best friends, and I ate the rest on the way home. And my mum was like, "Where are these cakes? I gave you money to buy cakes. Did you not bring any cakes home?" And I barefaced lied, just like as you do at 7. I was like, well, they were like £2 for 1 cake, and just complete lie, you know. I just didn't tell that. I could have told the truth, but I thought I'd get into trouble because I didn't bring any cakes home. But I guess, like, I always like to tell a little story, like, I'd fallen over and the cake fell in the bin and whatever. Like, I would just make up stuff. And I see it in my own kids, they tell stories as well. It's like my daughter had the nursery nurse convinced that we had 4 cats at one point. And she even named them, these imaginary cats that we don't have. She's like, "How are your cats?" Like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Oh, your daughter, she's been telling me about Bitsy and Black Magic and Puppy and your cats that you have." I said, "We don't have cats." So I think that what's so amazing, it's like almost the art, like you say, it's like we create these stories, and you reel people in, don't you? That's how you connect with people. That's how we inspire people. And I read from a very early age. I read books to my children, and I also, you would have found me like tucked up in my bedroom in my teens reading Lucky Santiago, or whatever her name was, Jackie Collins. I was a massive Jackie Collins fan, and I read the female characters in those books, and I wanted to be those characters. And it's so interesting, like reading fiction and creating your life to kind of mirror what you're reading. I mean, stories are just fascinating. They fascinate me. We watch films, they're everywhere, aren't they? And like you say, if someone tells you the story of why you created a business or a product or a service, they are more than likely going to buy it because they'll see a part of themselves in that story. I'm stressed out, I want to go and do breath work. I'm stressed out, therefore I probably should go and do breath work too. Kind of stuff.
Well,
But
and
yeah, I think it's so powerful.
it's a big part of PR too, isn't it? Doing the story of the product or the service that's offered.
Yeah, very much so. It's also part of the PR to decide which stories you don't want to talk about. So having those boundaries in place, like you don't have to share everything. And working in a corporate environment, which I did for a very long time, we were often the team that would be right, well, this product's going wrong, but we don't want anyone to know about it, so we won't tell that story.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, and I think that's what I can see, the 2 sides of every of the stories. There is always 2 sides. So
And I think
Yeah.
that's why you're so good at what you do. Sarah, we are running out of time. I can't believe we're having such a good time here, and our
Loving
and
it.
our time is getting very limited. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to share with the audience? Anything
No,
you'd
I
like
don't
to
think so. I've just had the best time chatting with you. So thank you so much for
know?
having me.
Me too. This has been really, really fun. So, how can someone reach you? I think it's on the screen, but would you like to tell them how they can reach you if they'd like to know more about the girls' circles or more about what you do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so my PR work, I you can find me on my Indigo Soul PR website. And I'm on Instagram as well. That's often where I hang out. So I'm Sarah Lloyd underscore is PR. And the girls' circle, I'm just starting everything up. So I'm always open to chatting to people about that. So yeah, very excited to see where that goes.
Yes, and thank you too for writing articles for our Choices magazine. Our women entrepreneurs are absolutely loving the magazine, and I appreciate you being a big part of that as well. So, thank you so much, honey, for being here today. And we'll have you back again soon because you're always so fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed the program and that you'll be back again with us really soon at What's Your Story.